If you ever get offered a night job at a funeral home out in the middle of nowhere, say no. Even if you're broke. Even if they offer double pay. Even if they beg. Because some bodies don't stay dead, and some doors should never be opened after midnight. I broke the rules once, and now they won't let me leave. It all began on a damp October evening, when the kind of fog that felt alive rolled off the pines like it had a purpose. I had driven 3 hours inland, deeper into rural Maine than I'd ever dared to go. There were no streetlights out here, no other cars on the road. Just trees, darkness, and the GPS glitching between coordinates like it couldn't decide if this place should exist. I was broke, desperate, and dumb enough to answer a job posting that simply read, "Caretaker wanted, night shift, all duties explained on site. Cash paid daily." The funeral home sat on a crooked hill, surrounded by leaning gravestones and rust-covered fencing. Its name, Hawthorne Rest, was carved into a rotting wooden sign that creaked when the wind blew. The place looked abandoned. A 2-story Victorian monstrosity with boarded-up windows and sagging shingles. The only light was a flickering lantern. By the front door, casting long shadows on the porch, I almost turned around, but money talks. And mine had been silent for months. I stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned beneath my feet, like they were warning me. I knocked twice. No answer. I was about to try the knob when the door opened on its own. Not slowly, not dramatically, just a casual swing inward, revealing a dim hallway lined with photos of people who all looked like they died screaming. Inside, the air was cold and sweet, like decayed flowers and dust. A tall man in a black vest appeared from the shadows, his skin pale as wax, and eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in years. "You must be Jordan," he said. "You're late. Come, there are rules you need to learn." He handed me a crumpled sheet of paper that looked like it had been rewritten dozens of times. It smelled faintly of formaldehyde. The title at the top read, "Rules for the Night Caretaker. Clock in at exactly 11:59 p.m. Not a second before. Not a second after. Do not open the red curtain viewing room. Ever. If you hear knocking from inside a coffin, knock back once. Only once. There will be a phone call at 3:33 a.m. Do not answer. Let it ring. Every night, one body will go missing. Do not search for it. Let it return on its own. If you see someone who looks like you wandering the halls, lock yourself. In the chapel, pray. The basement is off limits. If you must go down, bring salt and don't stop singing. Never fall asleep here, even for a second. Any questions?" The man asked that I stared at him, laughing nervously. "This is a joke, right?" He didn't laugh back. Instead, he turned and began walking away. "One more thing," he said, pausing in the hallway. "If the organ plays by itself, run. Just run." That night, I clocked in at exactly 11:59 p.m., standing beside a dusty timecard machine that looked like it hadn't worked since the 80s. The silence in the building was unbearable. I could hear the faint creak of the rafters above, the groan of pipes in the walls, and worst of all, the slow, rhythmic tapping of something from the closed caskets in the display room. I remembered Rule 3 to knock back. Once that I swallowed hard, and walked up to one of the coffins. The tapping had stopped. My heart hammered in my chest. I raised my knuckle and knocked once. There was a moment of dead silence. Then something knocked back. That was just the first hour. By 1 a.m., I began hearing the organ in the chapel play soft, uneven chords, like a child pressing keys at random. I ran to the chapel, but the organ was silent. No one was there, but the pews had been moved. Not just slightly, rearranged, as if for a service. And on the altar sat a single black rose that hadn't been there before. At 2:17 a.m., I passed a mirror in the embalming room and caught a glimpse of myself smiling back. Only I wasn't smiling. And at 3:33 a.m., the phone rang that I didn't answer, but the thing is, someone did. I could hear it, the sound of the receiver being lifted, breathing, then footsteps upstairs that I didn't go to investigate. Because the rules didn't say don't go upstairs, but every bone in my body screamed not to. I thought morning would bring safety. But when the sun came up, the place stayed dark. The front doors wouldn't open. The windows showed nothing. No sun, no outside, just more darkness. And when I checked the caskets again, one was empty. Not open, just vacant, as if nothing had ever been in it. Then the organ played again, louder this time, and I realized I hadn't made it to morning. Because here at Hawthorne Rest, there is no morning, only night, forever. The worst part wasn't that the coffin was empty. It was that I recognized the name on the plaque. Jordan K. Wilkes, 1994 to 2025, my name. My birth year. I stared, frozen, my breath catching in my throat as the polished silver plaque gleamed dully under the low, flickering chandelier light. It felt like something had shifted in the air, like the house was breathing around me. And I swear on everything, I heard something whisper, "You're already dead." I stumbled back from the casket, nearly tripping over my own feet. My thoughts raced. Was this some kind of sick prank? Did they know my name when I applied? Was the whole job a twisted trap? The echo of my footfalls followed me down the corridor. As I bolted for the front door again, still locked, no sound of wind or birds outside. No trees, no moonlight, just black. A thick, void-like blackness pressing against every window like a liquid wall. It felt like I wasn't in the real world anymore. Like I'd stepped into something else, and it wasn't going to let me go. I went back to the front office. The man who hired me, Mr. Caldwell, was gone. No sign of him. Just a dusty leather chair still slightly swaying. As if someone had just stood up. On the desk was an old tape recorder. The kind with a single red button and a built-in speaker. It clicked on by itself as I entered the room. If you're hearing this, it means the first night took you. You're inside now. This place keeps what it catches. Finish your shifts. Follow the rules. Or become one of them. Then static. And then the voice again. Only this time, whispering. They're coming for your face. I turned around fast. Nothing behind me. But the hallway lights were all off now. Only the faint glow of the embalming room remained. A warm yellow square cutting across the carpet like a door to another world that I didn't want to go in. But something moaned from inside. A slow, slurred, guttural groan that sounded like a man in pain. Or something pretending to be one. I stepped inside. The body from earlier, the one that was missing, was back. But not inside a casket. It was standing upright on the embalming table, stitched from collarbone to navel, chest cavity freshly sealed. Its eyes were open, its lips were moving, and then, in my exact voice, it said, "I'm not supposed to be here, but you brought me back." I ran, straight through the corridor, down the back hall where the photos of screaming mourners stared with black eyes. Every door I passed creaked open an inch behind me, one after another, like the building was waking up. The red curtain viewing room was now open. I hadn't touched it. I swear I hadn't touched it. Rule 2. Do not open the red curtain viewing room. Ever, but it was open now. Inside was a mirror covering the entire wall, but my reflection was smiling. Wide, wrong, bloody, teeth, no eyes. And behind the mirror, the glass began to bulge outward, like something was trying to push through. I slammed the door shut and shoved a bench against it. My phone had no signal, no battery, but the screen suddenly lit up anyway, displaying a video file titled Final Shift.mp4. It autoplayed. The video was me, standing in the hallway of Hawthorne Rest. Only it wasn't from any angle I could have filmed. The footage showed me entering the chapel, then the doors closing, then screaming, and then silence. That I hadn't gone to the chapel yet, but now I had to. Because if the video was showing the future, then maybe I could stop it. Or maybe I couldn't. I walked slowly to the chapel door. The organ began playing a single note on repeat, like a heartbeat. C, 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 C. I pushed the door open. The pews were filled with people, dead people, rotting, gray-skinned, sunken-eyed corpses wearing funeral attire, all facing the altar, all perfectly still, except their heads turned slowly in unison when I stepped inside, and standing at the altar, back turned to me, was me. Same clothes, same haircut, but when the figure turned, its face was blank. Just skin, no eyes, no mouth, no nose, and in a voice that came from everywhere, it spoke. "You can't leave, Jordan. You have to take someone's place." I backed out of the chapel, heart pounding. The dead in the pews started to stand. All of them, reaching, dragging feet. I slammed the door and sprinted down the hall. The walls were different now, stretched, pulsing, covered in what looked like veins. I reached the basement door. Rule 7. Off limits. Bring salt. Don't stop singing. I didn't have salt. I couldn't remember a song. But the door opened anyway, and from the blackness below, I heard a dozen voices whispering my name. Jordan, Jordan, Jordan. I closed the basement door, locked it, then my phone lit up again. New video. You died here at MP4. I played it was me. Lying in a casket, a funeral. People crying. Someone leaned over and whispered, "You should have followed the rules." And that's when I realized this place wasn't trying to haunt me, it was trying to replace me. When morning came, if it ever did, I had to get out. But I knew now, time didn't move here. Not normally. Every second was a trap. Every rule was a chain. And with each tick of the broken clock on the wall, I was becoming more like them. The third night started before the second one ended. I don't mean that poetically. I mean it literally. There was no sunrise, just a long, suffocating stretch of darkness that warped time. The old grandfather clock near the foyer had stopped at 3:33 a.m., and no matter how many times I wound it refused to tick forward. Its pendulum swayed side to side like a mocking grin. Tick, tock, never stop. I'd stopped keeping track of how long I'd been inside Hawthorne Rest. My phone said Monday, but I was hired on a Thursday. I hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, and I hadn't seen the stars in what felt like days. But I wasn't alone anymore. Something had started following me. It wore my face. Not just resembled me, it was me. Down to the scar on my chin from that bike. Crash when I was 10, but its eyes were wrong. Too wide, too interested, like it was studying me. Waiting. It never spoke, just watched. I first saw it peering around the corner outside the embalming room. Then later in the chapel, sitting in the front pew while the organ moaned without keys being pressed. Once, I turned to check my reflection in a mirror near the viewing hallway. My double was still there, smiling back while I wasn't. I didn't know what it wanted, but I was starting to think the rules weren't just about surviving here. They were about keeping yourself. I went back to the office, looking for Caldwell. There had to be more instructions, another paper, another message. The old desk drawers were locked, but the side cabinet wasn't. Inside were dozens of yellowed folders labeled with caretaker names. David L., 1996, vanished Stephanie M., 2002, unrecovered Terrence B., 2011, became one Jordan K. Ongoing. That last one wasn't even filed. It was lying on top. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, surveillance photos. Of me, clocking in, walking the halls, talking to no one, sitting in the embalming room staring at a wall for hours. Footage I'd never seen, never remembered doing. Point one. Showed me asleep in the chapel. I've never slept here, I thought. But what if I had? What if I didn't remember it? The pages continued. Handwritten notes in red ink. Shadow took 3 minutes longer than previous hosts to develop. Doubling stabilized on night 3. Physical vessel resisting transfer. Unusual. Will attempt pressure method. Begin exposure to basement at 4 a.m. My blood ran cold. I hadn't gone to the basement. Not yet, but now I understood. That's where it finished the replacement. Where your shadow, your copy, completed its molding. The basement was the final. Test point 4:00 a.m. The bells tolled without sound, and the door to the basement opened on its own. A gust of warm, wet air drifted out. It smelled like spoiled milk, old blood, and damp earth. The shadows down there didn't move with the light. They slithered and twitched on their own. I stood at the top step, the cold wood creaking under my feet. If I went down, I didn't think I'd come back the same. But the knock came again, from inside one of the walls, and a voice, hoarse, dry, human, cried, "Help me, please, I'm still me." I descended the stairs slowly, one hand tracing the wall, the other clutching the roll of salt I'd found earlier in the embalming room. My lips hummed the only song I could think of, "Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star." It sounded childish, pathetic, but somehow it helped. The basement wasn't a basement. Not really. It was a stone corridor. Circular, endless, lit by flickering candles that cast no heat. On the walls, hundreds of faces, screaming, eyes wide, pressed into the stone like clay impressions. Some looked fresh, some looked like mine. I kept singing. Halfway through the tunnel, I saw him again. My double. Only now he was wearing my uniform, the exact one I had on. His tag said Jordan, and mine was missing. He raised his hand. So did I. He tilted his head left. So did I. Then he smiled, and I didn't. That's when I knew. He wasn't mirroring anymore. He was practicing. I charged him, slammed the salt into his chest. He screamed, not with pain, but rage, like a cornered animal. His skin cracked like porcelain, leaking black smoke. His eyes turned red and his smile widened into an inhuman gape that split across his jawline. That he lunged, shrieking, hands clawing. That I threw salt at his face. He recoiled and vanished into ash, but I knew it wasn't over. Deeper in the tunnel, I found the real me, chained to the wall. That half melted, half conscious, lips whispering one word on repeat. Swap, 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 swap. I pulled him free. That he looked at me with horror. You're not real. I'm not real. And then his body collapsed into salt. That's when the tunnel walls screamed. All the faces moved at once, mouths agape, and the ceiling began collapsing. That I ran, sprinting toward the candlelight, toward the spiral staircase, toward the organ music that was now playing in reverse. I reached the top, just as the stairs began breaking beneath me. And then I blacked out. I woke up in the embalming room. Daylight pouring through the windows. The front door open. My name tag was back. The grandfather clock was ticking again. It was 7:01 a.m. And for the first time since arriving, I heard birdsong. I ran out the door, never looking back. Drove until the GPS started working again. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw me. Just me. I think. But that night, I got a voicemail. Unknown number. Just static. And then a voice that sounded like mine whispered, "See you at 11:59. I didn't go back. I swear I didn't. I threw the phone out the window somewhere along Route 9 and never stopped driving. I left Maine behind me like it was cursed earth. I got to New Hampshire, slept in my car, and stayed in motels under fake names. I stopped answering calls, stopped checking emails. My only goal was simple. Forget Hawthorne Rest. Forget the rules. Forget the coffin with my name on it. Forget the double, the mirror, the voices whispering my death. But you don't forget what's in your blood. Because some things follow. It began with mirrors. In a roadside diner 2 states away, I caught my reflection moving 2 seconds behind me. In a gas station bathroom in Connecticut, my reflection stared at me even after I walked away. In a motel room outside Albany, the reflection smiled while I cried. I started covering them up. All of them. Mirrors, screens, any surface that could hold an image. But it didn't help. Because now, I wasn't seeing my reflection anymore. I was seeing him. Same smile, same eyes, only deeper, hungrier. Then came the dreams. I'd wake up and sweat, clawing at my skin, the sound of organ music playing faintly through the walls of every room I stayed in. Sometimes I'd find salt sprinkled at the foot of my bed. Once, I woke up and there was a clock on the ceiling. It read 11:59 and ticking. That's when I realized I never really left Hawthorne Rest. Or maybe it never let go of me. I returned to Boston, broke and unstable, with no real plan except to end it. I needed answers. I needed truth. The local libraries had nothing on Hawthorne Rest, no mention of it anywhere, no business registry, no property tax records, like it had never existed. But I found one article, buried deep in microfiche at an old town hall archive in Piscataquis County, missing. James Caldwell, owner of historic funeral home in Atkinson. Date, November 3rd, 1974. Body never found. Funeral home closed. Building condemned. There was a photo of Caldwell. Same vest. Same pale eyes. But that wasn't the worst part. There was also a caretaker listed in the same article. Name, Jordan K. Wilkeston. That's me. But the article was from 1974. Something was wrong with time. Something was wrong with me. I had to go back. Not to survive, but to destroy it. I returned to Hawthorne Rest on Halloween night. The same fog greeted me. The same rotting sign creaked in the cold wind. But the building looked older, more decayed. As if it had waited for decades for someone to return. I walked through the doors at 11:59 p.m., and the grandfather clock struck midnight. Inside, the lights flickered. The same rule sheet lay on the floor, though it was yellowed, brittle, and half-burned. The red-curtained room was open. The organ played softly. The embalming room door slammed shut behind me, even though I never touched it. This was it, the final shift. I headed to the basement. There was no singing this time. No salt. Just me and him. My double stood at the bottom, grinning, head tilted. He spoke first this time. You broke the rules. You left your post. You're not real. I spat. You're just a parasite. He stepped closer, his hands twitching unnaturally. I am what you left behind. I am the part that obeyed. What do you want? To trade. He lunged that we fought in the dark, fists slamming into flesh that didn't bleed. He was faster, stronger, more me than I was. I felt the weight of every rule I'd broken drag against me like iron chains. But I wasn't here to survive, that I was here to end it, that I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small glass vial I'd brought. Blessed salt mixed with ash and ground bone from the cemetery. Outside, I'd gone back there at sunset, dug it up myself. From my own headstone that I smashed it against his face that he screamed. The building held with him. Walls cracked, candles blew out, and suddenly, we were back in the chapel. The pews were full of caretakers, every face I'd seen in the folders, all of them dead, all of them me. The organ roared. The coffin with my name on it glowed from within. I walked toward it slowly. My double crawled, hissing, bones cracking, and then the doors flung open. Daylight, true daylight, and a voice, mine, but not from me, spoke. Make your choice. Stay and become, or leave and forget. I looked at my double, writhing, furious, and I made my choice. That I pushed him into the coffin. That he screamed once, long, high, and shrill. Then silence. The lid shut on its own, and the world stopped shaking. That I woke up outside. That it was dawn, crisp October. Wind, pines swaying. The building behind me was gone, not crumbled, not burned, gone, like it had never existed. That I returned to my life. Got a new job, a real one. Started therapy. Stopped covering the mirrors, but every night, I check the clock. That if it ever says 11:59 again, I won't answer, because I know the truth now. Some jobs don't end when you quit. Some jobs keep your name forever, and some funeral homes don't bury the dead, they recycle them. The sunlight was a lie. That I thought I'd escaped. I thought shoving the creature, my double, into the coffin and sealing it had ended everything. The coffin vanished. Hawthorn rest faded. I woke up on the edge of a dirt road with birds chirping, and frost coating my windshield like the whole nightmare had been a dream. I drove until I ran out of gas. I slept for 2 days straight in a stranger's barn after begging for shelter. I tried to re-enter the world, but you don't just leave a place like Hawthorn rest. It leaves something in you. It grows, and then it calls you back. 2 months later, I found myself staring at a mirror in my apartment. I was shaving, or at least, I thought I was, because in the reflection, I was smiling again, and my hand wasn't moving. The razor hovered midair while the reflection finished the stroke. That I dropped it and backed away slowly. The reflection kept smiling, then mouthed, 11:59. I moved cities, changed my name, burned every photo of myself, even deleted old accounts. Got a job as a night security guard for a parking lot. Simple, open air, nothing with walls, no mirrors, no hallways, no coffins, no rules. For 2 weeks, I slept peacefully, but on the third Sunday, I found a note, taped to the hood of my car. Same crumpled parchment, same scent of roses and rot, same heading, caretaker rule sheet. Extension phase: you closed the coffin, but the soul escaped. He is still among the reflections. Feed him, or he will feed on you. Do not speak your name aloud between 11:59 and 3:33. He hears it. If someone knocks on your door during those hours, don't answer. You already live alone. Never fall asleep on Thursday nights. That's when he crawls back. Your double is still practicing, and he's getting better. There is no mourning, only resets. At first, I laughed. Out loud, a desperate, broken sound that sounded more like a sob. Why me? I muttered. That's when the mirror behind me answered, in my own voice. Because you stayed too long. The days that followed were a blur of terror. My shadow started moving half a beat behind me. People I passed on the street stopped and stared, not at me, but through me. I began hearing tapping on my walls at exactly 3:33 a.m. Sometimes it came from inside the walls. Other times, from the ceiling. I never had an attic. I tried therapy again. Told the doctor I believed something was haunting me. He nodded slowly and offered me tea. I didn't drink it, because in the reflection of the office window, he had no mouth. Only a stitched line where lips should have been. I left and never went back. Then, one night, I received a package. In a return address. Inside, a VHS tape labeled Final Shift. I hadn't owned a VCR in decades, but something told me exactly where to find one. At the bottom of my hallway closet, behind dusty shoes and old photos, lay an old, black VCR. No memory of buying it. No explanation for how it got there. But it was plugged in. Waiting. I played the tape, black and white graying. Then, me, walking the halls of Hawthorne Rest again. Only I wasn't moving on my own. I was being puppeteered, jerked along by invisible strings. My mouth hung open. My eyes stared forward, unblinking. And behind me, the chapel filled up again. All those faces, caretakers from decades past. All of them. I ejected the tape, set it on fire, but when I looked back inside the box, there was another one. The rules were never about keeping me safe. They were instructions for training my replacement. Every caretaker who failed became part of the house. Not ghosts, not spirits, echoes copied into the walls, etched into the coffins. I hadn't survived Hawthorne Rest. I had simply delayed the merge point. One night, I locked every window, salted every corner, covered every reflective surface in the apartment. But I forgot one thing. The puddle by the bathroom door. It had rained earlier. A small puddle had formed where my boots dripped onto the tile. And at exactly 3:33 a.m., my reflection stood up from that puddle, wet, dripping, and smiling. He didn't speak. He just pointed to the clock point 11:59. Again and again. He touched the mirror, and my face began to fade. Like I was a memory being replaced pixel by pixel. I screamed and threw every light on. He didn't disappear. He whispered, "You're late." That night, I passed out in the hallway, and I woke up somewhere else, cold marble beneath me. The air, thick with embalming fluid, pipes groaning above, and in the corner, that damned grandfather clock, frozen on 3:33. I was back to no doored, no escape. Just one last shift. Hawthorne Rest didn't need a new caretaker. It needed a vessel. And I was already halfway gone. I now walk the halls without feeling. My name tag still reads Jordan. My reflection doesn't smile anymore because it won. Sometimes a new caretaker arrives, confused, desperate. I try to warn them, but my mouth doesn't work anymore. I can only point to the rules. Sometimes they follow them. Sometimes they don't. But it doesn't matter because this place eats everyone eventually. Now and then, the organ plays, and I remember what it felt like to be me. To be free. To dream. But there's no sleep here, only the endless loop of night. And the tick of the clock that never moves forward, only ticks inward. So if you ever see a job posting for a funeral home out in rural Maine, don't answer it. And if you do, don't read the rules. Just run, because once you clock in, you never really clock out.